Hi, as many of you know, we are Michael and Lindsay Davis, and our children, Lucy, Reuben, Ezra, and Boaz. And starting 3 years ago, we were planning on going to Ireland and helping to revitalize a church there in Furbo, County Galway, Ireland, and eventually with the goal of planting even more churches just west of Ireland.
And a year and a half ago, we had sold all of our stuff, and we had packed up, and we were ready to fly as soon as we got our visas, and we were just waiting for our visas, and we waited for our visas for the next 6 to 8 months. And it was actually just a year ago this week that we received our final visa denial, and that was a very confusing and difficult time for us to work through, and many of you guys shared in that emotion and that time with us as we learned to seek the Lord, to see why He was doing this and what He had next for us.
Yeah, and so as that happened and as we were dealing with that grief, we met with our pastors and we just said, what now? We were fully funded to go to Ireland, but now we didn't have a place to go and we were fully funded. So we looked at countless places all over the map, and each one of the little bullet points on the little map there, we seriously had serious talks with the people there, and they all kind of fell through except one. And that one was Scotland. And so God directed us toward a church planting ministry there that we ended up going and trying to see what it was all about.
So this October, we were actually able to go as a family, and even in the midst of a pandemic, and we went to Scotland, which is there, you can see on the map, just north of England on the island of Great Britain. And we were able to we had to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then we were able to spend some time getting to the ministry there. They were able to assess us and see if they thought we were a good fit. And we're going to show you a quick little video that just tells you about the need for the gospel in Scotland and also the ministry that we're going to be working with.
When you think of the nations that have historically had the greatest global gospel impact, Scotland would probably be fairly high up on your list. Eric Liddell, David Livingstone, the Covenanters, John Knox. For such a little nation, Scotland has a rich gospel heritage. So you'd probably assume that Scotland's a Christian nation, right? Well, today biblical Christianity has been sidelined in Scotland. What once was known as the land of the book is no longer. Only 2.5% of people in Scotland would call themselves evangelical Christians. And in Scotland's poorest communities, the picture is even bleaker. Scotland needs a new reformation. At 20 Schemes, our desire is to see Scotland's housing schemes transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ through the revitalisation and planting of gospel-preaching churches, ultimately led by a future generation of Indigenous church leaders. We believe that building healthy, gospel-preaching churches in Scotland's poorest communities will bring true, sustainable and long-term renewal to Scotland's schemes.
And so many people get really confused by this when we talk about the schemes. Schemes are not ambitious plans in this context. A scheme is actually the Scottish term for what we would think of as similar to a housing project. They are government-funded housing areas for low-income people, and that can include people receiving essentially their version of welfare checks, but it also includes their working class. Many of the families are working 2 or 3 jobs just to stay afloat. There also are people that move into the schemes, maybe immigrants. But they are the poorest communities within Scotland, and there is little to no gospel influence there. If you meet a Christian in the schemes, they likely moved in. They're not one of the families that has been part of that culture for generations. The good news about the schemes, though, is that they are very tight-knit communities. They are close, and once a church can build trust within a community, they are well trusted and then part of that community. And that also means that the churches that are within the schemes are a very close community, as a church should be. It also means that the people there, because of the various issues that they face in life, they know that they have a need for the gospel, and they're actually quite receptive to the gospel. The difficulty is often the day-to-day walk after coming to Christ and the need for constant daily body life within the church and discipleship.
Yeah, and so we're excited to be a part of 20 Schemes, which is actually a ministry that started out of a small church in Edinburgh, Scotland, and they wanted to reach out to Scotland. They saw the need there, and so they said, let's start this ministry, a church planting ministry, so that we can get people all throughout Scotland in church planting teams and be able to not only plant churches but revitalize churches. And so Niddry Community Church, in partnership with Bardstown Christian Fellowship in Kentucky, started this ministry called 20 Schemes, and with the goal of bringing the light of the gospel to Scotland Schemes through church planting and revitalization. So not only starting new churches, but also helping struggling and dying churches, or even dead churches, come back to life, and do that with church planting teams that just rejuvenate the people that are there. And so we were excited about wanting to be a part of this ministry that started in this local church. And their goal is to plant 20 churches in Scotland Schemes, hence 20 Schemes. They're not planning 20 devious plans all over Scotland, but they're actually trying to get within these poor and needy areas that are usually lacking hope, and really get the gospel into those places so that they can bring hope that doesn't just change their external things, but also their emotions, their attitude of life. So that's why we were excited about that. And so, as you can see on the map there are 7 other church plants and revitalizations that Niddry Community Church has been a part of in the last 8 years. And we're excited to be a part of a ministry that is, by God's grace, doing so much to be able to take the gospel into all different places in Scotland and train up people as they go. As you can see on the slide there, Hope Church in Barlanark, which is in Glasgow, they have 2 pastors there. Their names are Pete and Pete, and we will most likely be going and helping them for the first 2 years, and then planting out of that church into a scheme just close by.
So when we were first looking into 20 Schemes, there were a lot of things that really interested us about the ministry, and then when we were able to go last fall, we were able to see how those played out in real life, and there were a lot of things about the ministry and the churches that are really exciting to us. And the first one is something that Michael already mentioned a little bit. It's just that it is a gospel focus. With all of the needs that the people have in these communities, a lot of times it can be easy for a ministry to get caught up just on the personal, physical needs, and 20 Schemes is, as a ministry, and the churches there are convinced that the greatest need these people have is the gospel, because their greatest problem is their sin, just as it is for us. And while they do a lot to help the people with their physical needs, all of those are done through the lens of the gospel. And that's really something that's very important to us. And another thing that's important to us is that the local church is central in all of that. That it's not all about 20 Schemes, it's about the local churches there and them. And that was Jesus' plan for the nations, is to reach them through the local church. And so we want to be a part of a ministry that emphasizes the local church.
Yeah, and obviously part of that is also church multiplication. They're not just wanting to grow a big church there in Edinburgh that everybody can come to, but they recognize that each community is a little bit different, and that God might have given skills to a community to reach that community and not just build one big mega church that everybody can come to. And so they want to plant churches all over Scotland to reach the people that are there, those unique individuals that will be able to reach their community for the gospel. And so we're excited to be a part of that, that churches are planting churches. It's not just organizations over here just without any leadership kind of going and trying to run something, but there's local churches that are gathering together and saying, how can we reach Scotland for the gospel, which is an exciting thing. Part of the church multiplication that happened, it actually started with Niddry. Niddry saying we need to partner with local churches around here and globally, and them partnering with Bardstown Christian Fellowship actually planted those 7 churches, those plants and those revitalizations that have already started within Scotland. And what is really neat is that even from those 7 plants and revitalizations that have already started, there are 3 more or 4 more that are hopefully happening soon. Obviously COVID prevented some of that from happening, although one church actually did start their plant during COVID, which is a really exciting thing. But but it's neat to see that these churches are partnering together to plant other churches and schemes nearby.
Another thing that we noticed as we interacted with the churches there is that as churches, they emphasize strongly church membership and caring for the body life, and then also with that church discipline and church discipleship. And what we found in the two churches that we worked mostly with, which were Niddry Community Church and Hope Bar Lanark, is that all of the members of their church are part of a discipleship relationship, a one-to-one accountability relationship. And most of them are in more than one, because they're not only being discipled by someone, but then they're discipling someone else, and maybe even more than one other person. I was able to see that also through the women's ministry that they have, and how they train women within the schemes. A lot of times they tend to be very matriarchal. There are not a lot of fathers present, and so within the churches, they have to train their women to teach the other women and the other children, and so they have a very strong women's ministry training. And I was able to meet a woman there named Katie, and I actually first met her when I was in a ladies' Bible study that I got to sit in on, and she gave a 40-minute devotional going through Ephesians 4, and I just assumed actually that she was one of the pastor's wives because of how well she taught the text. And then later found out, as I was listening to her tell her story and hearing some things about her, and then I talked to her later and found out she'd only been saved for 4 years and was saved out of a very difficult background, and yet she was so well discipled and trained from her church that she was able to lead other women, and that was really encouraging to me, and I'm really excited to be part of a ministry like that.
Yeah, so 20 Schemes is about training Indigenous church leaders, and so they want people from the schemes that are getting saved, and especially the men that have changed their lives to be raised up, trained, and to be leaders of the Scottish churches that they're trying to plant. They don't just want Americans to come over and be the pastors for 25, 30 plus years, but they want Scottish leaders to be leading the Scottish churches, which we think is actually a really good thing. And so we're excited that they're trying to train Indigenous leaders through not only doing different partnership or different internships, but also they have a Bible college called Ragged School of Theology. I say Bible college, it's just a discipleship program that they have at the church that they use for different people that come from the different plants, that they can learn and be trained up and go to these different plants and share the gospel with the people that are there. One of those stories is Sam. I got to meet Sam when we were in Edinburgh for our training there, and it was really cool to hear how he had come from a really hard situation where his life was in danger in Wales, and so he came up into Edinburgh, Scotland, and was discipled, and now just being able to have conversations with him. He's only been there for 3 years, and the level of conversation we were able to have about the Bible and what he's been learning is just fantastic to hear that they are training their people well, and they're training people from their area. So it's a really neat thing to see how they're training. They're really wanting to have the people from the schemes be the future leaders of the church. And then church partnerships. They are not just wanting to be their own solo church there, kind of leave everybody out. They recognize that to get the gospel out there, they need not only local partnerships, local church partnerships, but they need global local church partnerships. And so we're excited that there are many churches on board that are supporting us and that are partnering with us, partnering with the churches that are there, hopefully to be able to be a part of their ministry and see not only how they can help those churches, but how those churches can help the communities here in the U.S., all over Ohio and New York and Pennsylvania and Virginia. And we're excited to see what that might look like in the future. And we would love to have you a part of that. And if your church would like to be a part of that, we'd love to go down that road and see how that might work. We're certainly thankful for our partners that we already have. Can I just say also that we think that this is a great ministry fit for us? As we go to Scotland, we obviously were sad about not being able to go to Ireland and how that fell through. But we actually think that this is a great ministry fit for us. And we're excited that this long-term commitment that we're making to Scotland, what this might look like for our family and how we might be able to use for best and the local church there. So we're excited about that. Just to let you know a little bit about our timeline, we're going to be in Ohio and kind of going around until February, and then we're going to be raising support hopefully until the end of March, beginning of April, and updating churches and different individuals. And then we have to go through the visa process and repack everything that we had originally planned for Ireland, and sifting through all of that, and then planning to leave between April or May sometime. And then when we get there, we're going to be just understanding the culture and going under the Ragged School of Theology, which I'd love to talk through with any one of you that have any questions about that. But going through that and just seeing the material that they're using for the people within the schemes, so we can get used to using that material. And then hopefully after 1 or 2 years being able to be a part of a church planting team that leaves Bar Lanark and the scheme in Bar Lanark and maybe goes to another scheme nearby. And so we're excited about doing that. I'm sure many of you are wondering how you can pray for us, and we would ask that you would obviously pray as we travel around for safety, that our van can make it. We were surprised that it got us through last year, let alone that it's still with us this year.
We were praying it would make it before we moved to Ireland, so we're on borrowed time.
Yeah. So the Lord has provided for us, and we're certainly thankful for that. Certainly thankful for our mechanic who questions why we have the van every time we bring it in. But we're also thankful, or just asking for prayer, that we would be able to raise that last $700 to $800 a month that we have to raise. Our family, that as we get ready to move, that will be emotionally, physically, and spiritually ready for our trip, and hopefully in April or May, and moving to Scotland permanently. And then that the church in Scotland, you would pray for them as they are in pretty severe lockdown. And we have a lot of freedoms here that right now they don't have, just because they're stuck in their homes due to COVID issues. So to be praying for them and their emotional state and spiritual state, especially of the church there, that they would be able to get to their members and encourage the community around them with the gospel still. So I know that many of you probably have many other questions, but if you have any other questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at mike.davis@20schemes.com. And as you see on or on our Facebook page, we love Davis Family Ministries. We'd love to see you on there or talk to you more if you have any questions. But thank you again for hearing our ministry, hearing what God's doing in our life and in Scotland, and we look forward to talking with you in the future again.